So, good afternoon. I'm Roberto Sega. I'm an architect. And the paper I'm going to present today is part of my PhD research that I'm carrying out at the EPFL of Lausanne inside the Laboratory of Urbanism, led by Professor Paolo Viganò. The aim of this research is to study the role of production and industry in the construction of the Alpine city territory. Industrial production was and maybe still a key element in constructing city and society. Today, l'économie politique, as it was defined by Saint-Simon, the father of industrialism, is more and more detached from the physical aspect of territory, craft, and society. In Europe, we are inside a period of deindustrialization that it doesn't depend only from the last economic crisis of 2008, but it is undergoing since the half of 70s. Obviously, we are not producing less, but we have decided to delocalize the production outside of Europe, and now we just consume more what other nations produce for us. For the traditional city model, the deindustrialization means dismission, gentrification, and a particular type of urban expansion. Today, we assume to import from far away all the product we need for our standard of life, and we consider industry as an object that we don't want to have nearby. The industry that resist to delocalization are today located mainly in the space between cities or in secondary territories. Like how we can see here in this map, today production is no longer part of the traditional city model, but on the contrary, it is one of the constituent elements of marginal and peripheral territories. Here in green, we can see the major city of Switzerland, where we have lost, starting from 80s, a lot of industry. And in violet, we have the place where industry has grown more. So in the space between small and medium cities or in the secondary territory. Production participates today to compose this heterogeneous space of the city territory where the spatial and functional relationship seems the result of coincidence more than a deliberate and urban design project. On the contrary, the hypothesis on which I'm working is that production has had and will have in the future a key role in the construction of the project for the European city territory. As Giancarlo De Carlo said when he was criticizing zoning like a segregation of different functions of the city, the industry unit tends to rationalize itself in line with the needs of production. For this, I propose to consider production as an actor through which read and guide the modification of territory. In fact, industry is one of the territorial elements that has changed the most over decades, and now the structural change of a European productive system should force us to rediscuss the equilibrium of all the elements that compose the secondary and peripheral territories. Through a cartographic work that brings together spatial and statistical data on industrial demography, the research made a first attempt to bind the shape of city territory to the structure of the productive systems. Concerning the Alps, the Alpine case study, we can see here the strong presence of industry all around the Alps, while the territory in the middle remains quite empty. To correct this map, we should remove from the calculation all the extreme area where industry could not be located, and we should replace the administrative border with a morphological one. By this way, we will see how the 15% of the valley floor, this is the case of Valais, is occupied by industry. And we have more than 50 enterprises each 1,000 inhabitants. That is a number very high in respect to the average of Swiss. In the popular imagination, the Alps are that romantic landscape that nothing has to do with industry. The Alpine region tends to be represented only as a district of the snow or an ecological oasis of good living on the edge of the metropolitan model. And from this is here the need to reveal another story. and show the heterogeneity and the function of the alpine productive territory. In the Alps, we can find at least 4 different types of industrial presence. The industry linked to a surplus of low-cost labor force. It was the case of the proto-industry, of the textile enterprises located near waterways, or the industry related to the mineral resources. For example, the extracted materials were brought in lowland area thanks to the realization of a railway infrastructure that has also greatly improved the accessibility of those areas. Or the industry related to hydropower. In Grenoble, L'Huile Blanche, as it was called, has been the major engine of growth and prosperity for all the region. Or also the industry of transport and logistics that consider the Alps not as a barrier, but a corridor through which exchange goods, labor from one side to the other. And here, quoting Guedes, it is the productive Alpine Valley section with the relation between the different elements of this Alpine machine. And here is the first cartography of the Alpine productive platform that is starting to fill the empty space that we have seen in the previous map. We can see here, for example, the hydroelectric power plants, the specialized area of production, the border between nations, and the strategic way of transit and the exchange of goods, flows, and energy. So with the aim to better understand the differences between an Alpine Valley and the others, I've built a first taxonomy dividing the Alpine valleys in different families, and I've started to do several fieldwork. Today I will show you an example of the work I'm doing. This is a zoom on 2 transnational Alpine corridors. One is in Switzerland, the Valais, and the other is in Italy, is the Val d'Ossola. Here, the 2 valleys are represented as a unique corridor linking the metropolitan area of Milan to the Arc Lémanique. And here, in red, is represented the relation of the main valley floor with the secondary valley. While in black, we can see the strong presence here in the area Milanese of industry in respect to the other side. But if we look inside the valley floor, we can see more or less the same density. For the Valais, we can see a sort of rhythm between one industrial zone and the other. We can understand better this regarding to the typical morphological structure of the Alpine Valley, where the ancient villages were located on the edge of alluvional cone, this one, in order to be protected from the flooding of the river, while the railway that was built after, it ran in the low part of the valley. Here you can see the ancient village that is on the cone, and the industrial zone that is detached from the village because it's located near and connected to the railway. What is interesting is that to look to the expansion of this city, to the growth of this city, that are growing along the main axis in order to reach a sort of new waterfront or to reach the station that is still inside the industrial area. And so it starts a sort of pressure on the productive zone, and we should find a sort of hybrid project solution in order to face the compatibility between the urban and the productive element of the city. For example, we can see it very well in this territory, the Chablais near the Lake Léman. Here we can see how the urban settlements, represented here in orange, they are on the edge of the valley, on the cone, and in the middle we find the main infrastructure and all the industrial zones. This territory is composed by 6 different municipalities, who's working together for a strategic plan at the federal level. They are building new services in the space in between the municipalities in order to serve it. And this is the opportunity to work on different scenarios for the industrial area, because these new services will be located very near to the industrial area. For example, we could think about a functional mixed city, but also urban densification in special productive context. For the Val d'Ossola in Italy, I've took another zoom, always 10 kilometer by 10 kilometer, and it's the case of Grabellona Toce near the Lago Maggiore. As you can see here, the industry are not in the middle of the valley. They are less linked to the railway system. They are located mainly in the space between the urban settlements. And if you look at the border of the industrial area, they are not. They are more fragmented. So here the challenges are not so clear from the economic point of view. But this valley was selected as a prototype area for the Italian National Strategy of Inner Area. And the hope is that through this cohesion policy, it could be possible to go beyond the classical proposal for a touristic economy. So finally, what I'm proposing to do now with my work is to going on with several comparisons at the small scale between different alpine valleys, in order to highlight the difference in terms of urban growth and industrial localization. So a work done at the small scale of the different urban elements, but inside a systemic reasoning on the idea of the productive alpine platform, taking into account the fact that in any case we have we have to find a way to include again production inside a new idea of city, with the aim to preserve the quality and the heterogeneity of the territory. So inside a vision of no polarized development done without, we can say, growing fractures. So towards a different idea of development that put the emphasis on the internal solidarities of many fragile systems that should work like a united system. So putting them in special and economic relation, synergy, going beyond the image of a territory that is today only serving the metropolitan area of the plain. And by this way, rediscussing at the European scale the marginality and the attractiveness of the Alpine city territory. Thank you.
Thank you very much.